Hello, check. Check 1, 2. I'm not a sound guy, so I'm not sure what to say. Cheese? We're making cheese? Does that work? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Agrifoods and Garden Show. Another year in St. John's. We're excited to be here, and we're going to be doing some lots of food demos. We also got at our Newfoundland Labrador Federation of Agricultural booth, we've got samples being served all day long, which is different from what we're serving on stage. What we're doing on stage is, excuse me, we're trying to bring ideas to the home where it's kind of back to agriculture in the sense of, buying ingredients and making things yourself. We know living in this day and age, it's hard sometimes to find time in the kitchen and time to dedicate yourself, so we try to make our demos in a way where you're going to learn something new, but it's not going to be something that you've got to, be an expert at and work at, for years to kind of master. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make fresh cheese. Now, fresh cheese is different from cultured cheese and aged cheese in the sense that we're going to make it now and we're going to eat it now. Most cheese you can't do that, but the fresh cheese, thank you very much, a couple cloths and some hot water. So in saying that, let's get started, yeah? So we're going to make today paneer cheese. Now, paneer cheese is an Indian-style cheese. It's a fresh cheese, and it's a very, very simple thing. We've got some citrus, and we've got some milk. That's all we need in terms of our ingredients. And a cutting board, you need some cheesecloth, and you can use other things as well. Even a T-shirt that doesn't have any silkscreen printing on it will work fine to strain it out. You just need something to be able to hold your cheese together and form it after it's done. A pot and a stove, not much. So in order to get this thing started, we'll turn on our burner, and all we're going to do is just pour the milk into the pot. Very, very easy, very straightforward. Now, there's obviously technique in making cheese. So like anything, you kind of got to be aware of what you're doing in the kitchen, and you got to be aware of the steps and the stages and kind of how things are progressing along. Now, again, we try to do things simple up here on stage so you can take it home and give it a try without having to be an expert. So that's what we're going to do. So one thing about it is you kind of want to bring this milk to a boil slowly. So you don't want to just crank the heat like you would water and cover it and let it just, come quickly to a boil. You really got to, this is the patient part. It doesn't take too long, but it takes longer than cranking your heat up on high. So we're just going to put it on a medium heat. It's a little different with these Iwatanas, but I'll find the medium. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to get the milk solids burned to the bottom of the pan. You don't want that, all right? So that's going to affect your taste of the cheese. It's going to affect, obviously, your end result. So one thing to be careful of is just you don't have to stand over it the whole time. But you do want to make sure that you're stirring it regularly, all right, just to prevent that burning and preventing the heat to come through it too fast. The other thing that you want to be careful of is I'm sure some of you in the kitchen may have put milk on the stove for other reasons and it boiled over. Well, you don't want to do that. So again, in being in the kitchen doing something, you don't want to put milk like this on the stove and then go up and put a load of laundry in. Make sure you kind of stay next to it, be around it, be aware of what's going on, and every now and then just kind of give it a stir. What I like to do at home, and what we're going to sample at the end, is we're going to do a kind of a tikka masala, our version of it. And we're going to kind of spread the cheese around in that sauce and serve it with a bit of bread. We're also going to have just the cheese to try as just the cheese. So for me, I'll be making my sauce, getting my spices ready, kind of putting that on the stove. All the while, I'm kind of constantly coming back to my milk and just giving it a stir, all right? So again, the heat is coming through that. I can feel it. We're doing our thing. In the meantime, we're going to get our juice ready. Now, the recipe is about 2 liters of milk per about a quarter cup of acid. If you want to use citric acid, which comes from lemons and limes, you can buy citric acid at stores in your shelf. You don't have to worry about having, fresh lemon and limes. Because what we're going to do is we're going to rinse the acidity off of the cheese. The acidity's part in all of this is to break the curd from the whey, all right? Thank you. I'll just put that there. So in order to break the curd away from the whey, it needs acid. So a quarter of a teaspoon of citric acid we'll do the same thing as a 1/4 cup of actual fresh lemon or lime juice, okay? Just as a standard. Now I know on our, I'm going to get off topic a bit here. I know on our agenda or our calendar of events we had fresh matcha cheese at home. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the mozzarella to stretch with the milk. I don't have an answer for it quite yet. Still trying to figure it out. But for some reason, it just won't work. And I'm thinking that maybe we pasteurize at a bit of a high heat level here, and that may affect the solids coming together. I ended up making the cheese, but it just wouldn't stretch. And stretching and making mozzarella is probably the most important part of mozzarella. But on the topic of fresh cheese, paneer's a fresh cheese, mozza's a fresh cheese. Again, these are cheeses that, ricotta's a fresh cheese. These are cheeses that are made within an hour at home, okay? You're not gonna make aged cheddar in an hour, but you can certainly make ricotta and paneer and mozzarella. The trick with mozzarella, just to get off topic a bit, is that once you have a curd formed, you have to melt it and heat it through and then stretch it. So there's a stage where once you have your curd, it's kind of not very palatable, it's not enjoyable, but as soon as you start stretching it and it reaches 135 degrees, it changes the cheese completely. And it gives it that texture and that taste that you know from a buffalo mozzarella ball or a bocconcini ball. That's the kind of end result. So we didn't want to come up here and do a demo that you couldn't go home and replicate. So the matcha cheese one, we kind of got off our game a little bit where the agenda got done early on, so instead we're kind of on to paneer. But paneer, as a vegetarian, who would drink milk and dairy, of course, is great because it goes excellent in vegetarian dishes. It holds up really well. You can pan fry it. You can eat it just as is. You can put it into a sauce. You can bake it in the oven. There's a lot of varieties you can do with paneer in recipes. So for someone who's a vegetarian that wants a little bit of different texture, maybe get away from tofu, making paneer, excellent. Really, really great way to do it, all right? So, I don't know, can you guys, is everyone okay seeing the mirror? Are we all lined up here? Yeah? Am I too far back or? Yeah. Just holler at me if I'm not doing this right, it's okay. I can take it. How's that? Better? Excellent. Okay, so when I do limes and lemons at home, some of you guys might have zesters and juicers and those work great. But for me personally, I like to kind of take the edges off like this, all right? And just kind of give it a little bit of poke with the knife. This is kind of how they do it in Asia, you don't waste any juice this way and you don't need any equipment to be messing around. And really, you don't waste any juice. It's a great way to do it. And then, of course, you've got your core. Now, for us all, this is going to be strained off. We definitely don't want any seeds, but in terms of pulp and that kind of stuff, you can strain it if you like, but so you can see, like, just in that one little sliver off the side, I had quite a bit of juice. And it took no effort, It's not like, sometimes you squeeze it and there's juice in it and you can't get it out and it's frustrating. This is a really kind of neat trick and again, you can see it just kind of pours right out. And you can easily pinch it and squeeze it. It's the right size, It's just a handy way to juice a lemon or a lime. I'm going to keep doing this till I get to about a 1/4 cup. Again, you can see my milk starting to cook on the edge here. I don't know if you guys can notice that. The heat's coming through it, but it's coming through slowly. Starting to bubble a little bit. Now, if for those of you who are particular on temperature, which is always kind of a safe general practice, I would encourage it, you want it to get to about 80 degrees, 176 Fahrenheit. That's the temperature just below boiling. All right, so it's like on the brink of boiling. That's where you want to that's the point in which you want to take the milk to. So with mozzarella cheese, you got to be very particular about temperatures. So you got to be using a thermometer constantly. With paneer cheese, not so much. You just kind of need to realize, hey, it's almost to a boil. I'm good to go. See, you can see it kind of coming along there, but it's not happening rapidly like you see with water. And that's because my heat level. I've got my heat adjusted accordingly. Now, we're minutes away from separating the whey from the curd. I'm going to keep juicing these limes. One thing about the 1/4 cup, it's one of those give and take things. I start with 1/4 cup. If it doesn't separate out completely, if I'm noticing it's not coming together, I just add a little bit more acidity, and you'll notice it start to, and we'll see that happen now in a minute. And then, of course, when you get to these points, that's where your seeds are. I've got enough, so I'm not going to bother and risk it. But you just grab those, and the juice will pour out of them. And, I mean, you can see it's just 1 lemon, 1 lime, no tools, no equipment, no seeds, no pulp. Very simple, easy way to do it at home. All right, so here we go. I'm going to take this off the heat. Turn that off and kind of push that aside. So I'm at that temperature. I can confirm it with a thermometer if I like, just to be sure. So right now I'm at 170, 175, and I'm at about 180, so I'm definitely good. So it's simple. I'm just going to add the citrus. Now, it's important to make sure you guys can see this. You're going to notice the curds separate from the whey, and you're going to notice the whey take on a kind of a bit of a green tinge. It's almost going to be like green water. And that's your whey, all right? We're going to kind of take that whey and put it aside and just focus on the curds. But bear in mind that that whey is a really, really flavorful liquid. And there's a lot you can do with it in the kitchen. So again, you know, being in a kitchen, working in a kitchen, waste is one of those things that is just downright unacceptable. So you kind of use everything all the time. And I tell you what I use the whey water for. And again, there's a lot of uses you can figure out for yourself. But I like doing a shallow poach of vegetables in it. Gives the vegetables a bit of a little sour note from the whey. It's a really good. I use it in my bread recipes instead of water. Again, it gives your bread kind of a silkiness and a sourness that, you know, I don't know those of you who kind of know much about bread or even took in a bite of a sourdough bread, and you're like, wow, that's got kind of this pungent sourness to it that goes really well with the bread. You know, it's delicious, right? Well, that's coming from things like whey and little tricks in terms of your baking, you know what I mean? Now, sourdough, I should say, is made from a culture, and that's where you're getting that sour note from. But if you use whey in the water, any bread will get that kind of sour note. So it has a lot of uses. So as you can see, that's not really separating enough for me. All right? I should notice that clump together a little more. So again, a lot of cooking is about feel and look and touch and, you know, that kind of thing. So once I add this little bit more of, I want to make sure I get any seeds in this. Once I add a little bit more of this, you're going to notice it doesn't need much, but it'll be enough to kind of finish it off. So are we kind of getting a sense of that down there? Yeah? Everyone kind of get a feel for the whey separating from the curd. Now see how quick that was when I added that little bit of extra acidity? I knew it wasn't coming together because I knew it should look like this. And just that little extra drop brought it to where I needed it. So cooking is about feel, touch, look. You got to get involved. You got to have a kind of basic understanding. But this is simple, easy to do at home. Cheesecloth, double layered. So just 2 thin layers. That's all you need, okay? And what we're going to do is we're just going to dump this straight through. Now, bear in mind, at this point in time, this water is very acidic. All right, we added all that lemon juice. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want no acidity and tartness in my cheese, right? It has enough of it anyway. So we need to rinse this. So once you put it in here, I don't have a sink, but we'll rinse it, okay? By rinsing it, it's going to get rid of that taste of lemon juice. At that point in time, you can put a bit of sugar, bit of salt, you know, you can kind of flavor it in there as you like. I usually like to just let it go cheese, and then I'll bring flavor to it in a sauce or that kind of way. We're going to strain this off. Again, I'll try to get you guys to, you see that? Is everyone okay seeing that? All right. And you know what? Like bread and cheese, there's this sense of like pride and accomplishment when you do it. You know what I mean? Because we're just so used to kind of picking those ingredients up. We don't really ever kind of take into consideration, you know, how they're made or what's involved in it. And, you know, as a chef, you're like, okay, I need this kind of cheese, and you go and get it, and that's it. But when you make it, and then you make a dish with it, it's kind of this, you know, something about it, this kind of unspoken kind of pride in it. And I know me as a chef, when I cook for my family, I'm watching them eat it, and I want to see their reaction because you made it. You made it from scratch. You took milk and you made cheese, and there's something kind of a little magical about that, So again, I'm just taking the edges of my cheesecloth, and when you put your cheesecloth, make sure you got ample cheesecloth over the edges so you can pick it up and do this with it. At this point in time, that whey is hot, right? So I'm going to move it over here just to give it a wash. So you guys can see how that's kind of like already the moisture is kind of coming out of that. So this is just tepid water. That's going to remove the acidity from it, okay? Then I'm going to pick it back up like I had before, and this cheese is done. All we're going to do is tighten up the ball, kind of shape it in the cheesecloth. I'm going to put a weight on it and just wait until the moisture kind of drips out of it, okay? Which is going to take, you can leave it overnight in the fridge with a little weight on it. You can, this is really hot, so I'm kind of, normally I would crank it, but the whey is at 176 degrees. So yeah, it's definitely hot. So again, I'm just going to kind of push that down and squeeze that down. You can see how that's kind of shaping into like a, it's like a patty of cheese, right? And by packing that in like that, we put a weight on it, and then when it cools, it's hard, okay? And the magic of food demos, hey! Let me just kind of clean up my station here for a second. Okay, so we got our whey, our excess whey. And like I say, this can be kept for all kinds of things. All right, it's really good. Another thing you can do, believe it or not, is put this in a pot, bring it to a full boil, all right, let it boil away, and then strain it, and you'll get ricotta cheese. There's still cheese in this whey that hasn't come out yet. And by bringing it to a full boil, we'll start to separate what's left in it. You won't get much, but you'll get probably a nice spoonful of ricotta cheese. All right? Now, the thing about this, if you want, you don't have to pack it like this and let it kind of seep out. You can let it be loose and use it as a loose cheese curd. Mix it in with scrambled eggs or mix it in with, whatever you want to mix it in with, basically. You don't have to kind of form it into a shape. I just like to do that. So we got this one. It's formed into a shape. It's been sitting. Now, we made this morning, so it's still a little soft. But here you go. You got a nice little block of cheese, right? Ugh. So as you can see, this is a cheese that you can cut. Surprising, huh? So it's one of those things where, when you take this, you can cube it. And then if you like, oil. Yeah. I was just going to have some oil there. I would have fried a couple pieces for you, but I didn't bring any down. He's going to run and grab some, but we might not have time. But I can take this chunk of cheese, a little bit of oil, hot pan, and get a nice little sear on that. A little bit of extra texture in the cheese. Beautiful. What we're going to sample you in our masala sauce, we've pan fried. So it'll have, when you bite into it, it'll have a little bit of texture, which I find really nice, and it brings out a little bit of flavor in it. So the versatility of this cheese, endless. Absolutely endless. And as you can see, I did it right here in front of you guys in very limited time with very limited equipment and 2 ingredients, lemon juice and milk, something that we have constantly. So with that being said, I don't have my oil yet, so how about we maybe eat some, yeah? What do you say? If you don't mind, yeah? I'm going to try to come up with a system here before we get you guys to come up just to make sure we can keep things moving. So we've got 2 types of cheese to try. They're both paneer. One we've got cooked in a sauce with a little bit of bread, all right? And then we've got just the cheese, okay? So you can just get an idea of the cheese by itself. It doesn't have a lot of flavor. The better the milk you have, the more flavor. Oh, thanks. And the more you have, are you guys interested in seeing me fry a bit of this? Or do you want to get right to tasting? We'll fry a little bit? Okay. So again, just, thank you. Yep.
Can I take that back upstairs?
No, I'm good. So just, again, a medium heat. Nothing too crazy. You don't want it to burn. You're pan-searing cheese, not a steak. So you don't want to go too high on your heat. Let me get that back out there. We all see that? Yeah, we in good shape? Excellent. Has anybody here made cheese at home before? Any kind of fresh cheese? Anyone? No? Anyone going to try it? That makes me happy. I like hearing it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of, now he brought me down olive oil, I can tell, because that's what I asked for. But generally speaking, I like to go with a little bit of a lighter oil, maybe a grapeseed or a canola, something that is kind of better for frying, you know? So again, just an even coat. You don't want an abundance amount of oil. Just enough. Make sure, like anything, when you're searing, your pan is a bit hot. And at this point, you can season as well. I know I brought down salt and pepper. I thought I brought down salt and pepper. All right, here we go. So you get a little sizzle. I don't know if you can hear that. Yeah. You want to hear that when you put stuff in a pan. If you don't hear that, get it out and make sure that pan kind of comes up to temperature, okay? Now, another thing is don't play with it too much, you know? Let it kind of build that crust and then turn it, okay? If you try to play with it too much too fast, you'll end up taking your, it's really high heat. You'll end up kind of burning it like I'm probably doing here now. So you can just see, like, you know, you're getting a nice little kind of brown sear on it. Beautiful, right? A little bit of texture, a little bit of saltiness, you know, when you kind of bring that out in something. What's that? Oh, salt and pepper. First demo of the show. We're missing a few things, you know what I mean? We're running around there this morning we got one every 2 hours, so we got a lot to do up there, yeah? So I apologize for that, but we're making do, yeah? We're making do. So that's kind of that, you know? Really, really simple to do. And then from there, what I like to do is I'll have, you know, the full pan kind of, you know, with cheese all in there. And then you kind of just pour your sauce over it, cook it up over rice or over pasta or, you know, whatever you want, right? Beautiful. So, now, are we ready to have a taste? All right, sounds good. So I'm just going to kind of get everything out of the way. If I can get someone to possibly maybe stand at the corner here to pass samples out.